There are some derbies in football that transcend their locale, and the Soweto Derby in South Africa embodies that sentiment.
Not only does it divide Soweto, it divides Johannesburg, then it divides the whole country.
Orlando Pirates and Kaizer Chiefs. They were founded in completely different eras in history, but they're forever linked thanks to one man. Despite this link, they represent completely different things.
Orlando Pirates is just heritage. It's football heritage in South Africa.
Kaizer Chiefs was the most decorated side in South Africa. They had won the most trophies ever as well. Far more than what an Orlando Pirates would have won.
So for this episode of Roots of the Rivalry, let's dive into El Clásico, aka the Soweto Derby, to find out what's at the heart of this division. Hey guys, I'm Adrian and welcome to Rabona TV's longest running series, actually, Roots of the Rivalry. I love this series. I know it was on hiatus for a while, but I love it because it allows me to learn so much about the football culture in places that I typically don't cover on the channel. And I hope you enjoy that too. This one was incredible to work on, and if you find yourself enjoying this video and wanting more from us here at Rabona TV, whether that's Roots of the Rivalry, explainer videos on concepts in the world of football, profiles on players and clubs around the world, variety is what we like around here. If you like variety as well, be sure to subscribe. As always, let's start with the foundational history of these two clubs, and similarly to how the foundational history of Inter is so deeply tied to AC Milan, you could say the same sort of thing here when it comes to Orlando Pirates and Kaizer Chiefs. So let's start with the older of the two clubs, Orlando Pirates. And guys, I apologize, but I'm doing my best with the pronunciation. I looked up as much as I could, but as a Canadian, it's not going to be perfect, so a pre-apology here. Typically Canadian. For this section, we'll have help from freelance journalist and certified football coach Newo Petlo, who is from Orlando and is, of course, a diehard Pirates fan. You said that you were born into being an Orlando Pirates supporter, so it's passed down through the family, I guess?
Literally like that. There was a picture in my house of the squad of the Orlando Pirates that won the CAF Champions League in '95. So that's literally my first memory of any football club or anything to do with soccer, and it was Pirates.
So, as we have seen time and time again, the founding of most clubs either happens in a church, an athletics club, a school, or what have you. And the founding of Orlando Pirates is no exception. Back in 1934, in Orlando East region of Soweto, southwest of Johannesburg, the Orlando Boys Club had a football team, but more like a group of teenagers that just played amongst themselves at the Boys Club. That is until a boxing coach by the name of Andries Pelepele Mkhwanazi suggested that in 1937 they form an actual football team that would compete against other clubs in the area, and they did so.
The club is a huge social symbol in Orlando. Orlando was founded in 1931. And Orlando Pirates was founded in 1937. So it's almost as old as the township itself. And the township is where like great players, great coaches, great musicians are all being coming from that place in Orlando. So that's where the history is rooted. That's why the club is so important, because the old version of the stadium, that's where political figures would hold their social meetings and all those sort of gatherings. The club was a symbol for the community, and it just kept on growing.
In fact, Orlando Stadium is about a 2.5 kilometer walk from Nelson Mandela's famous home that has now been converted into a museum. Now, before the Orlando Boys Club joined a professional structure, football structure that is, they would play friendlies against other clubs, join regional tournaments, etc. And they won everything they competed for at that level. The Orlando Boys Club joined the Johannesburg Bantu Football Association in 1937, and according to the club's official history, they played without any kits or even footwear until 1940, when a local social worker gifted them their first kits, hand-me-downs from a local club called Firi Firi, which had a big P on the front of the kit. The P, coupled with Pelepele calling the boys "I'm a pirate" 1 year prior, was too much of a coincidence for the club to identify as anything other than pirates, though their club badge with the skull and crossbones wouldn't come to be until the 50s, about a decade after they'd changed from the Orlando Boys Club to the Orlando Pirates. As mentioned prior, Orlando Pirates were winning everything in the early days, and they continued to be dominant through many decades, the 40s and 50s, the 60s, etc. Of course, it's important to remember that the structure of South African football at the time was fractured, as this was during apartheid. It wasn't until 1978 that there was the first multiracial league in South Africa, in fact. But all the while, Orlando Pirates were successful and a symbol of. So it's It's almost sort of like a cultural epicenter, I guess, is what you're saying, that area.
Yeah. And that's really what the club is all about. It's about African greatness. It's about South African greatness more than anything. And then you take it down to the most micro version of it, which is a societal thing. So people from Orlando will have rivalries with people from other townships, from the other 28 out of 29 townships that are in Soweto. So it's that sort of thing. Orlando Pirates is just, it's heritage. It's football heritage in South Africa.
And funnily enough, the birth of what would become their biggest rival would come from within Orlando Pirates, by way of one young man named Kaizer Motaung. Now, this is important, as Kaizer Motaung is someone who both links Orlando Pirates and Kaizer Chiefs together forever, and he's the reason for their rivalry. How is that so? Well, let's start from the beginning. Kaizer Motaung joined Orlando Pirates as a 16-year-old, and his impact was fantastic. He was a brilliant player who would later leave Orlando Pirates at the age of 24 to go and play in the NASL in North America. At this time, the NASL was making a concerted effort to draw talent from around the world. Kaizer was no exception, as he went to play for the Atlanta Chiefs. You see what's happening here? Well, let's bring in Shakes Rampidi now, the host of the podcast Playing the Field with Shakes, and hear what he has to add to this conversation about Kaizer Motaung.
Deserves a lot of credit, because when he went and played overseas, he was playing in America and making a name of himself. There is that famous picture with him and Pele as well. And then he came back and he was playing for Orlando Pirates.
He finds that there's a little bit of division within the club. Some people even saying that the players were being chased out of Orlando Pirates because they played unofficial matches on the side. While he tried to speak for some of the players, the diplomacy, this is what happened, this is not what happened. And he couldn't solve that. He decided to just break away and start his own team.
It's noted that Motaung himself, given his love for Orlando Pirates, didn't take the decision lightly, and initially, the team that he put together wasn't even an official team. Going by Kaizer 11, this team consisted of former Pirates players and other talent they managed to pick up from the Soweto region. Given they weren't a formal club just yet, they mostly played friendlies against other big teams. And in fact,
the old people always tell us that they used to beat huge clubs.
Many people pressured Motaung to formally create a club, and finally, on January 7th, 1970, he gave in to the wishes of the people who were so impressed by the Kaizer 11. Taking the things that he had learned during his time with Atlanta in the United States, including the inspiration for their name and badge, as you can see, as well as bits and pieces of knowledge from his time at Orlando Pirates, the Kaizer Chiefs played an expansive, flowing kind of football that was not yet common in South Africa. Also, his approach to running a club was vastly different given his experience in the United States. That led to an increased popularity among supporters, and it's a reputation that stuck with the club for decades.
The way that they were playing back then, the style, the swag was really brilliant. And that's what really attracted me to the way that they played, the way that they scored goals, the way they defended, the way they played as a team. I thought, yeah, this is the one that resembles me the most. The club overall for me represents love and peace. It's all about being a family. It's always been about being a family, being one with one another, being able to fight. What Kaizer Chiefs was able to do was connect with the fans. They were just able to just connect with the fans in some sort of way. The players were able to connect with the fans, even just the way that they played, the way that they embraced each other after games as well. That was the key thing for it, was to say that you are part of us on this journey going forward as Kaizer Chiefs, and everything that they do achieve, you almost felt like, oh yeah, I kind of helped them achieve that too, because they made you feel like you're actually part of the team.
This style of play and the fact that Kaizer Chiefs were recruiting players from already established teams in the area made for some unhappy customers in the league. As their own history puts it, many weren't happy with this upstart club, Kaizer Chiefs. Of course, they wouldn't have cared about them if they weren't very good, but they were very, very good indeed.
What would probably differentiate it from Orlando Pirates is that the success that Kaizer Chiefs had, I think I have in overall versus an Orlando Pirates. Orlando Pirates is very successful, there's no denying that. But at Kaizer Chiefs, there was a long period where this club you almost guaranteed every season they were going to win a silverware. Oh, almost every season. And they were just always just breeding success all the time.
But another thing that both Orlando and Kaizer Chiefs stand for which of course leads to furthering their rivalry, are their ties to the Soweto region. Born and bred in the Soweto region. You know, proximity often leads to rivalry. The name Soweto, of course, is a syllabic acronym for Southwestern Townships, Soweto. And these townships were created by the white government to separate black people from white people, sending the black people away from Johannesburg to these townships and out of the white areas. Football, just as it is around the world, will have become an outlet for the people of Soweto.
The club was made like for Soweto and the people that are there, and was made by the people there too. So when you're giving other people a chance, and as well as also maybe some rival players coming to play for Kaizer Chiefs, I mean, that really made the team take off.
Take off they did, as for a long time, Kaizer Chiefs were the most successful side in South Africa, winning numerous trophies and overtaking Orlando Pirates. And funnily enough, their success and their proximity to Orlando actually caused them to eclipse one of the clubs that made up the original Soweto Derby.
You know, the original Soweto Derby, actually, to go back to the history, was actually between Orlando Pirates and Moroka Swallows, which is a team from Soweto also. So it went from Orlando Pirates having its rivalry with Moroka Swallows to Kaizer Chiefs overlapping Moroka Swallows in terms of popularity and now being the new derby.
So let's get to the very root of it, shall we? As always with this series, we like to see how the rivalry started and what caused it to continue. Now, of course, we recognize that, as in most cases, the origin of the rivalry, be that an economic disparity between the two sets of fans from each club, a religious or some other cultural divide, etc., whatever it may have been, often isn't still at the root of the rivalry today. It started the rivalry, but you get fans of all kinds of points of view and social status supporting clubs based on preference rather than some other reason, or it was passed down to them. But still, what started the Soweto rivalry and how it became the biggest rivalry in South Africa, I'm sure you could have guessed by now that Kaizer Motaung, a former Orlando Pirates player, one of their own if you will, is absolutely at the heart of it.
From the 70s, it was about the initial split. So the tension started from, oh, now Kaizer starting his own thing, we're going to show them we're the best.
A player comes and plays for your club, suddenly leaves your club, suddenly goes and creates his own club, and suddenly he's playing against your club. And we're talking about teams that are created not far apart from each other. So they created very close to one another because they're both in Soweto. When it happens that they're very close, they try to obviously fight for bragging rights, fight for their own space as well, and having to compete in that sense. And from then on, this rivalry grows bigger to a place that now it starts to divide Soweto. And once you start rivaling the big dog, which happens to be Orlando Pirates, it definitely gives them a huge plus.
A boy genius joined Orlando Pirates at 16, went away to America, enjoying notoriety and experience, returns to South Africa and the Orlando Pirates, and through the circumstances we went over surrounding the disputes at Pirates, he starts his own club. It's understandable why this rivalry started. It's similar in a sense to that of the Milan Derby, in that the initial fracture saw a group of players from AC Milan start Internazionale. It's that same combination of one of your own starting a new club mixed with the proximity that can only lead to rivalry. But there's an important component that has come into play as well for it to truly blossom into a great rivalry: success. And Kaizer Chiefs has had a lot of it.
Up until recently, Kaizer Chiefs was the most decorated side in South Africa. They had won the most trophies ever as well, and far more than what an Orlando Pirates would have won.
Orlando Pirates now in the 90s and 95 specifically, winning the CAF Champions League, now sets a different kind of competition where we're saying, okay, Kaizer Chiefs, you look good. You've amassed a number of fans, especially the younger generation, but we still have the star. So Orlando Pirates took a lead in that respect, while Kaizer Chiefs continued to dominate on a more local front. Kaizer Chiefs, no star. We're waiting for the star, man.
Yes, I'm sure all football fans have had some sort of argument that is similar to that with rival supporters of another club. Hey, we have the most domestic titles. Yeah, well, we have won a continental trophy recently. It's all Very relatable. On top of this, there's a difference in how the clubs were marketed. Orlando Pirates pointing to how they are a club that has grown with the Orlando region. As you'll remember, they were founded just 6 years after the founding of Orlando, while Kaizer Chiefs resembled a more modern, flashy, and flowing style of football, to put it simply.
Kaizer Chiefs have always been called the Glamour Boys, and Kaizer was obviously a young team owner in comparison to the older heads that were running with Orlando Pirates from back in the days. So Kaizer Chiefs sort of represented a fresh new approach, at the time a modern day approach, and that has sort of trickled down to being what the club is about. You even look at the colors, it's flamboyant, golden, yellow sometimes. So Kaizer Chiefs has always been the more appealing to the eye, the more commercially appealing, while Orlando Pirates, they've been around longer, they've achieved continental success.
But while this derby would divide Soweto, it also had a way of bringing the people together as well, as football has a habit of doing worldwide during times of hardship. It has the ability to simultaneously divide and unite. And given the inception of this derby came on January 24th, 1970, the first match between these two sides, in which Orlando Pirates won actually, this was still during a time of apartheid in South Africa.
You must understand, apartheid also played a role in terms of what was happening within the country, and football was almost the lease of life, was almost the least to sort of get away from what was wrong. And from then on, you find two teams that are just competing, but they're competing with the ball, they're competing on a pitch and trying to win those bragging rights. So it's almost like the clean way of fighting for bragging rights, the clean way of fighting for fans to support you. And it was almost enjoyable for fans to be able to pick a team in terms of which one do you pick. Do you go left? Do you go right?
It brought joy, and it brought sort of an outlet during a very difficult time, is what you're saying?
Yes, 100%. It brought a whole lot of joy. I think a lot of people, were working difficult hours, were working difficult jobs, some maybe even going through painful times. But every single time, whenever that game came about, people were just like, okay, great, let's grab our popcorn, let's grab our stuff. And they were looking forward to this particular game, because for that 90 minutes, that's when your worries go away. All you just look at is people with the ball, playing some really good football. So it was the moment of they could really get away from what is wrong in the current sphere at this moment.
However, the recent version of the Soweto Derby has come under fire a little bit, with many supporters and even individuals in the media pointing to how boring or unimportant it has become. Their words, not mine.
So it's become, the modern day version has become more of a commercial battle, more than maybe on the field, you would argue, because sometimes the games have gone 6 games in a row without a winner, and the fans were really disappointed, and some people would even be reluctant to go to the stadium because of that. And some would argue that the derby has lost its value.
Much of that is due to the recent success, not just success, but absolute domination by the Mamelodi Sundowns, who won the CAF Champions League in 2016 and have won the Premier Soccer League in 2014, 16, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22.
They've become so successful and they've run away from Pirates and Kaizer Chiefs that because these two are not competing for the league and competing for the African Champions League and competing for the big trophies every single year on a consistent basis, suddenly now you probably find that rivalry has a bit gone down a bit. I don't think they still like each other, but I think it's just they both don't like the fact that now there's a Sundowns. It's looking like it's running and it's Usain Bolting it, and it's just not coming back.
It's the old the enemy of my enemy is my friend kind of situation. Maybe not friends, but something closer to that from what it used to be. However, the rivalry will never go away, not fully at least. Even if neither team is really playing at the peak of their powers, they are to be forever linked and have given African football so much.
Just from Orlando Pirates, right, you get Kaizer Motaung, who then gives you Kaizer Chiefs. There is no Kaizer Chiefs without Orlando Pirates. So Orlando Pirates sort of takes that big brother status from the two clubs, even though Kaizer Chiefs is the successful younger brother. But he knows where he learned it.
Yeah, he knows where he got that heritage from.
He knows.
Where Kaizer Chiefs can claim they have been far more successful than Orlando domestically, as Newell pointed out, they can always point to the star on their chest and hang over their head that Kaizer Chiefs' namesake, Kaizer Motaung, developed and learned from Orlando Pirates. The never-ending divide will continue, which was brought on by two clubs' proximity in Soweto and their uncuttable ties. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this video on the Soweto Derby. As for me, it was a joy to produce. I want to give a huge thanks to my man Claudio from Goal Lounge TV, linked below, for helping me with the production of this video. He was absolutely integral in helping set up the interviews, and I couldn't have done it without him. So thank you, Claudio. As well, a huge thanks to both Newell and Shakes for being so generous with their time and their invaluable knowledge for this video. You guys are the best. Everyone, do check out their links down below. Beyond that, a big thank you to you for watching. If you enjoyed this and you want more, then be sure to hit the subscribe button and hit that bell so you actually get notified when I upload. YouTube is broken otherwise. And my last request, have a great day, guys. Ciao.